Welcome to the Recover You podcast. I'm Kylene.
And I'm Patrick.
We are a couple in recovery
From sex addiction
and betrayal trauma. Together, we share our story to encourage you on your journey. It's here that we talk about sex addiction, betrayal trauma, mental, emotional, and physical health, faith, and anything and everything needed to recover you to your most authentic self that God created you to be. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Recover You. Patrick and I are in the same room.
Wow. No one's sick. No one's in a huge argument with the other.
Wait, what?
What? When did that happen?
Now he's making things up.
Nobody's traveling. We're all just hanging out here.
We're under the same roof.
Yeah. It's kind of nice.
What's happening?
I know it's nice outside and burgers are on the menu tonight. I'm excited about that. I like burgers.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was completely accidental, but somehow the last month it was like we were alternating solo episodes, and it was you and then me and then you and then me and then you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we're here together today, and
we were fighting the unhealth, which was our physical environment.
Yeah, I got sick, and then you got sick, and then for both of us, it like really hung on. It was a hanger-oner.
Yep.
In terms of like we weren't technically sick, but then it was the residual like drainage kind of stuff. And
absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah,
fun
it's been
times.
a challenge. Yep.
And then on top of that, you had work travel and all sorts of stuff. So we're settled down for at least a couple days before you leave again.
Yep. I leave Tuesday.
We should do an episode about, have we done that recently on travel and boundaries?
Like what to do and stuff like that.
Because we haven't talked about that in a while, I don't think.
Yeah, I could do that.
Because I just feel like you're traveling so much more now. It'd be a good topic.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay.
Maybe if you're sleepy next week, I can do a solo episode on travel.
While you're traveling?
While I'm traveling. I'll do it from the airplane.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Moving on. Today's episode is going to be about recovery resources that range for whatever your budget is. So wherever you're at on the spectrum of income and flexible spending, we're just going to talk about sort of what the pillars are that we recommend, and this is applicable for both people, the addict or the betrayed partner. Just like the main pillars that we recommend, what you would say is like the ideal if everybody could do it. But then we're going to break down each one and just say, hey, like depending on what works for you, there's a lot of different ways to make it accessible and doable. Yeah, that's kind of the goal. Is we want everybody to be able to access whatever they need to be successful.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to talk about a lot of different options, and maybe there's one in here that you haven't heard of before or thought of before, or a strategy or something that we haven't talked about, and hopefully it's helpful.
Yeah, and I think through this, every family and couple faces different financial challenges, right? And some are okay financially, some are struggling financially, some are facing the result of addiction. Maybe there was money spent in the addiction that has created financial strain. Maybe there's legal issues that you're facing that is going to create some serious financial strain. When we talk about these different things, hopefully they're viewed, our goal is to get it across as a resource for you. We don't want to say, hey, you just need to go out and spend a bunch of money. That's not really the intent. And so, we understand that people are in different spots, and sometimes you are having to support other people or whatever that is. But I think what we hope to show through this episode is there's a lot you can do that costs very, very little,
and
to
I would say
nothing. Yeah,
money and however fancy your recovery journey is doesn't necessarily mean that someone's more successful.
That's right.
Because there are people that only go and do free resources that get into recovery, and there are people that spend a lot of money and they struggle with recovery. So what's more important than the money you spend is where your heart and your mind are.
Yeah.
It really is the most important thing. That has to recovery has to so totally be your primary focus. And I would argue for the betrayed partner as well.
Yeah.
Because for me, I was so focused on what's the next step? If that had been in the back of my mind, and I just was doing other things and living my life, I think we might have gotten here. It would have taken longer, certainly. and I might have missed a lot of steps. So I think it's such a different when you think about whenever you learn something new, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
Like anytime you create a pattern or you're learning a new language, because that's exactly what this is. You're learning a new language. And it's foreign to your brain, and it takes your brain a little bit of time to figure it out. And that's what recovery is for the addict. That's what recovery is for the betrayed partner. And so it has to be the forefront of our minds. And we have to really prioritize it. And again, when I'm saying prioritize it, it doesn't mean prioritize spending buku bucks on it. Right. It means that if that's the goal, then it's like setting a filter for your brain. And when you set the filter of recovery as my goal, then your brain says, okay, this is important to me. And it starts to pull information, whether it's conversations with people or something it hears on a podcast as a tool or an exercise you can do. And then you engage with that tool or that resource or that exercise, and then you see progress because your mindset is focused on the goal. But if we are sort of not focused on the goal, then our filter isn't set, and we could hear the exact same things and not hear it.
Right.
So it's much, much, much more important, just to kind of start this conversation off, it's much more important how you're thinking about it and where your heart's desire of where you want to go, where your vision is, and like what your life goal is really, and with recovery, than necessarily connecting to the quote unquote perfect resource.
That's right.
All right. So we'll keep this part short because you've heard us talk about it 10 bajillion times. There's a million episodes already, I think, breaking this down. But basically, when you're talking about, hey, if there's no financial roadblocks at all, we're talking for both people to go have therapy with or coaching with a qualified practitioner that specializes on one side in addiction, on one side in betrayal, that both people would be connected to some sort of community, some sort of group that is specific to what they're going through. And those are like the two huge things. And then all of the other resources like books and podcasts and all these things, like the continual education that is out there. There's a lot of different resources. So we just kind of want to break those down in ways that let's give an example of how somebody could do this, for example, completely free. For the addict, here's an example of how somebody could do it completely free. Okay, so the Conquer group that we talk about all the time, most support groups are free. If if you can find one locally, most of the local support groups are free. And we talk a lot about the Conquer groups, but I know, because I refer to these all the time, that it's not spread throughout the country densely enough that it's accessible everywhere. So we say, hey, you can go online, but that's not going to be free. So we're going to skip that for now. So the Conquer groups, if you have one that's local, that's great. But there's also other recovery groups. So there's SA, there is, what's the one? Celebrate Recovery. There's a bunch of different groups, right? Now we would sort of itemize them in terms of specificity of which is like the quote unquote best because it's most aligned with what you're dealing with. But again, it's more about where your brain is at, and we can kind of fill in some of those gaps in a minute here with other resources, which I'll kind of show you how to do that. But the group is important, it more so for the connection and the vulnerability, because that is such a core piece of healing for humanity. Humans need safe places to talk to people about what they're scared of, to talk to people about what is hurting their feelings right now, to talk to people about how their week went in a situation where there is vulnerability is rewarded, and there's a little bit of accountability. And again, I'm talking for betrayed partners and addicts here, but it's really important for both people to connect to a group. And most local groups, whatever they are free. So for betrayed, there's ones like S-Anon and COSA or Infidelities Anonymous. Those are some of the ones that would be more of the popular and more of the free groups. And then there's also the Betrayal and Beyond, which may be local in your area, or various different betrayal groups that may be local. Now, there's always the possibility too that maybe you live in a real rural area. There's absolutely nothing. Maybe you are the person that can start one. I know it's a little bit of pressure if you're early on in your journey, but that's always a possibility, right?
Right.
Okay, so we have a free group. We've connected somehow to a free group. And again, the focus is less on the specificity, although the more specific it can be, obviously the better, because the educational content and the exercises are going to be the most helpful, right? But let's say you've gotten a free group. Let's give Celebrate Recovery just as an example, because I've heard really good things about it, but I've also heard that for sex and porn addiction specifically, it's just not as tailored to that.
Yeah, I don't think it goes deep enough to
right.
it. Yeah.
So it's not maybe going to have all of the broken down step-by-step things that are applicable for your sobriety recovery, right? So you have a group that's not quite as specific. So what can we maybe do to fill in the gaps? We can do books. Well, books cost money. Well, let's go to the library and get books, right? And so I'm going to get these books, and maybe some of them are workbooks if they're available. And I'm going to go through a betrayal workbook. I'm going to go through an addiction workbook. You know, if it's from the library, you can't write in it, right? Maybe make some copies or take notes or whatever you do. But I'm going to go through these books. Now, maybe they don't have workbooks because they don't want people writing in them. I'm going to go through this what's that book that I always recommend? There's Rise by Misty, and then there's Intimate Deception by Sherry Keffer, so for betrayal. And then for addicts, you always recommend
Pure Desire.
Pure Desire, the book.
And Unwanted.
Unwanted by Jay Stringer.
Yep. And many others.
Brain blipping right now. Yeah. Okay, so you can go to our website, Recover You, click resources, and you'll see a bunch of books we recommend. But okay, so you go to the library and you get books that are very, 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 very specific, and then you're also communicating to people in a safe group scenario that maybe isn't designed to be specific, but is safe and open with people that are willing to be a witness to your story and help you through this. And then you take the books and you take the resources and you start applying the tools that they offer you, and maybe you invite some of the safe people to kind of join you or help you on this journey. And then you fill the rest of your time with free podcasts. Because they talk a lot about mindset. On this podcast, we have walked through and specifically explained how to do sobriety steps. We have a whole, it's like episodes like 68 to 72 or something like that, where it's like the 5 part series where we talk through sobriety tools. Like, that's all in there. So there are other podcasts out there that talk about recovery that are all free. All the podcasts are free. And they talk about all these steps. So there is a completely, totally free way that, as long as you're connected to other human beings, you are gathering some resources, and most importantly, your heart is in the right place, and then you're taking action on those things and you're practicing the tools, there's a free way right there to get all of the information that you need.
Yeah. One of the things that's really, and sometimes people will disqualify themselves because they're like, well, that group wants us to buy a book, so I'm just not going to go because I can't afford a book. This is the way I run Conquer, and I've seen this beautiful outreach from guys in the group. So what I tell folks is like, hey, I'd like for you to donate to the books if you can, but if you can't, that's okay. And then I've had other guys who aren't financially constrained go, I'll cover his books.
Oh, that's nice.
And so, my point being is if that person had deselected themselves out of the group, they wouldn't have been able to benefit from the healing that's there. So be very careful, because especially for actually for both sides, as you move into healing, all of this is going to be very uncomfortable. I don't know how many people, and I felt this way as well, going to that first group thinking, what the heck am I doing here? And if you're nervous about a financial resource, that you may use that as the flag to say, I'm out. And so
or sometimes it's my story is different than everybody else's story. So it's a little bit like I was just talking about the groups, right? Don't feel like it has to be the perfect group.
Right.
Because I'd say almost the main point of group is we get in these situations because we don't know how to be vulnerable. We don't know how to tell the truth. We don't know how to engage in emotional intimacy with other human beings, right? Get involved in a group that helps you do those things. Now, you have to be personally committed to it, because you could go to a group and lie. You could still do that and hide, But the point of a group is, yes, we want to connect you to resources that have great education and help encourage your brain and empower you and all these kinds of things specific to what you need. And even if it didn't have those things, you're still going to get a lot of benefit if it's a group of people that you can be honest with about what you're specifically going through.
And, just to kind of throw in the plug for group again, it's uncomfortable because it's uncomfortable. And it's really, really good for you to go into that. And it really, really grows you. And you end up helping other people. Yeah. And so I've occasionally folks will say, well, man, I don't know if this group is for me. And it's always like, hey, stick it out. It's going to be okay. And it ultimately turns into the very thing they needed. Mm-hmm. And so, like once again, we all, when we're uncomfortable, may throw up things like, I don't know. It's like me going to NLP training 2 years ago. I was like, I don't know about this. Mm-hmm. And then about 4 days in, I had this breakthrough. And I was like, I think I'm only here because you want me to be here. And but that was a big healing thing for me because I stayed in the discomfort and then until it became comfortable. Yeah. And so I think, so my point being on the finances is you may latch onto a financial thing to say, this is why I shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And you may be missing out on the greatest healing opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So again, we talk a lot about the specificity of groups. Like whenever it's possible, please do choose a specific group. Like yes. There is extra benefit to that. I wanted to paint a picture where if someone their heart's desire is recovery and they have zero financial flexibility whatsoever, I just wanted to paint a picture that it's still possible to move forward. It's still possible to get into recovery. I think the thing that's going to push you through that is the heart motivation.
Right.
And you're going to gather resources in whatever way is possible, whether it's free podcasts, whether it's books from the library or whatnot, or books you had mentioned, people from the group offering to buy books.
Absolutely,
or
yeah.
I think you had mentioned some story one time where people volunteer, I love this book, I'm going to buy a bunch of copies and give it to people. So there's a lot of different ways that and sometimes, I'll just throw this out there too, sometimes churches have benevolent funds and that maybe are set aside for people in their congregation as well. So if you're going to a church and you need some support and you say, hey, I've figured out I would like to do this and it's $50, is there any way that the church can help me? Sometimes the churches will jump in and say, oh yeah, what else do you need?
Yeah.
So that's always a possibility too. So a lot of different things there. And again, same thing for the betrayed partner, right? So the idea is connect with people that are safe, that you are able to tell your story with. Ideally, they would understand betrayal. That's going to be the most ideal, obviously. And then there are a lot of workbooks and books available. Again, if you go to Recover You Coaching, there's a resource page where I've listed kind of the top ones that we recommend. Mm-hmm. And so you can go to the library and get some books. You can listen to various different podcasts on infidelity, on betrayal, on recovery, all these different things. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next one, and this is typically where things get a little dicey, right, is therapy. So let's kind of move into we're moving away from the free category and we're going to move into the in-between category. I have some financial flexibility. I want to prioritize this, but I this is maybe a temporary thing or we have a little bit of savings that we want to apply to this or whatever. There's a little bit of flexibility, but everything's it's pretty tight. That's where, okay, so if you can invest, you're going to invest where you can, right? So if you're going to a group, you're going to, pay for the books, for example. Mm-hmm. And that there's benefit to that, right? When you spend money on something, even when it's a little bit maybe stretchy, but it's important to you, there's an emotional connection sometimes that happens in terms of, well, now I really need to see the entire thing through, or I'm going to use these books the second time I go through, or whatever that looks like, right? Like I can reuse the materials, but go through the same group 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Patrick's been through them 50 times at this point.
Yeah.
So you can take the same materials, you can make one investment because that's what you could afford, and then you can repeat the materials over and over. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. So here's where there's, in this in-between phase, there are some lower cost, more accessible options. And those are things like you go to a group, you pay for the materials, but the group itself is free, like Patrick just mentioned. Or there are resources like the Freedom Fight app. There are free resources on the Freedom Fight app, and then there are 8-month programs that cost about $119 per month. So a lower cost option that's still more, you're paying a lot less than like a therapy session, but per month, but you're getting 8 months of support for kind of a lower cost, and you're getting that accountability, you're getting the education. The cool thing about the Freedom Fight app is that it has that accountability factor in there with the faster scale.
Yeah.
So it's kind of everything in one place. You don't have to kind of have your journal separate. You don't have to have your faster skills separate. It's the group, the journal, the faster scale, all sort of in one place.
Yeah,
so it's kind of nice
too, which is nice. Yeah.
So that's a really good lower cost investment, and 8 months is kind of a good amount of time, especially if this is the beginning of the journey, right? So things like that. So when you're kind of in the in-between, you are finding a group, whether it's through the app or locally, that's going to work for you. And then you're going to figure out what's the level of investment that I can do. And if I need to repeat something, because now I have access to it and it's encouraging to me, I'm just going to take that one resource that I was able to get for myself and I'm going to repeat it over and over and over and over. Right. And you're going to get something out of that. And the same thing for for betrayed partners. Maybe they purchase something like the Betrayal and Beyond group, and then they reread the materials, or they find another. They purchase a couple books, and they look at the recommended exercises in those workbooks, and they just really take the time to navigate each of those exercises one at a time.
And I think the reason why reading something again or going through it, you talked about me watching Conquer over 50 times. I was watching last Monday's episode, and it's something I've seen, and I sat there and I was like, that is really, really good. And I've heard it a bunch of times. But healing is like peeling the layers of an onion. So if you read the book Unwanted 3 months in, it's going to hit you, and it's going to it's really going to hit you hard. You read it again a year and a half later, it's going to hit you a little bit differently. You're going to have new revelations come to mind. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like you don't have to say, well, I already read that book, I need to go find another one. No, you don't. Your process, once the starter's pistol has gone off on your healing journey, you're actually growing each day and each time you engage in it. So yeah, get back into those resources and run through them, because they really can. It can help you go even deeper and maybe direct you in a path that you otherwise wouldn't have gone on.
Exactly. And for the betrayed partner, there's workbooks like Facing the Heartbreak by Stephanie Carnes, Unapologetically You, I think is the title of a journal. Again, they're on the website, so go check them out. But again, you can go through these workbooks and they're going to move through. There's even disclosure books. Now I talk about this in the What's Next course. I kind of walk you through. This is another, your lower cost, more accessible option. The What's Next course is $127, and it's designed to walk the betrayed partner through 3 to 6 or 9 to 12 months, however long it takes you. Give you all of the basic information, and I reference like the disclosure workbooks. There's books written. I'm gonna forget the authors' names. Caudle and Drake, I think, is the authors' names. And there's a whole series of workbooks for the addict and for the betrayed partner. Now, ideally, you're going to be working with people as you go through disclosure. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the workbooks themselves, I know the ones for the betrayed partner, they have a lot of exercises and thought leading up to the disclosure. So, for example, if you're working with a therapist or a coach, we're really going to want to make sure we're going to try to mentally prepare you, right? And make sure we're supporting you through this process. And so this book is really trying to do that through the book, through the workbook, and gives the betrayed partner some tools and some resources, some exercises leading up to even the prep for it. And then they help you prep for it. Like, these are the questions you want to think through. And so there's again, it's a workbook that you can go through that'll take you through the different phases, right? So all of these different things that are, there's a lot of individual work that's very accessible at lower investment levels.
Right.
And the What's Next course is really going to take you through the disclosure prep, thinking about the questions. It's going to take you through how to write the impact letter, what to think about for a polygraph, how to support your body. There's a lot of exercises that I offer for self-regulation. There's videos that I teach on how to identify your emotions and learn, what are they trying to communicate to you? So all of these things that, normally we either don't know how to do or we might learn in coaching or therapy, there's some level of it that we can do on our own, and I try to include what you can do on your own in the course.
Right.
So that's 127. Again, it's on recoveryoucoaching.com. The link is in the show notes. But that's again, it's going to be a combination of things that we're utilizing here. And one of the ideas within that is that you can take that, kind of like one of the groups that Patrick would be in. It's a low level investment, and then you pair it with whatever level of therapy or coaching is in your budget. Mm-hmm. So let's say the addict, it has the ability to use it a little more frequently up front because he finds it really helpful and necessary for sobriety support, for example. So maybe a little bit more is put in, so he's able to go every week for the first 3 months, would just be an example. And then after that, maybe he goes twice a month and he's really making sure that he's not missing his groups every week. And then after that, and after disclosure, maybe he goes once or twice a month while he's working on some emotional processing, and then he moves to once a month. Then same thing for the betrayed partner, right? Maybe they're using the What's Next course, and then they meet with a coach or a therapist a few times up front to gain some stability, to get some questions, to really see and understand what's coming. They connect to a group, and then they use the course to answer most of the questions and the process questions and kind of learn how to support their body. And then there are some things that they're individual to us in our relationship, and we need to talk to somebody about it. And so then maybe they have a coaching or a therapy session once a month or once every other month or whenever they need it. And then hopefully they have found a group of people that know their story that they feel safe talking to. So that's sort of an intermediary, right?
Yeah.
And then anything to add there? Any thoughts that I missed?
No. You're crushing it.
Okay, great. Awesome. That's what I try to do. And then obviously, if there's no barriers at all, you're thinking we're both in therapy weekly for a while, right?
Yeah.
I think both of us, I took a little longer, like maybe 1 or 2 months to get into therapy. But I think both of us were in therapy more or less weekly for about a year to a year and a half. I think mine was like about a year and a half. Yours might have been 1.5 to 2 years.
Yeah.
I
started to back off. It was like every other week and then once a month. And then ultimately the relationship kind of ended because he ended up helping you on some things. So it's like, but yeah, I mean, I think by the time.
Not as a therapist.
Right. I think by the time I got to the conclusion of mine, I had really, because I had done every week for over a year, I had really processed through a lot of really, really difficult things because I kept coming back.
Yeah.
And so I was laughing the other day. I was with him for so long. I had different venues with him. Part of it was Zoom because he lived away from here than back and everything like that. So it was but it was great. I mean, because he knew my story and there was a lot of continuity to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I did therapy for a long time, and then I was very consistent and focused on betrayal for a really, really long time. And then just part of my personality is I really like to gain education. I really like to keep going, and I really and also part of my business too as a coach that has sort of evolved in a bunch of different areas. I'm constantly looking for how do I improve in this area? How do I improve in this area? And so I continued after therapy to keep doing different certifications or courses that brought a lot of information and education still in this area and also improved my own healing and continued to help me grow. And so in my emotional healing journey, and so I really I keep doing that to some extent. Every once in a while, I'll get something new and dive in and but that's just me, not everybody has to do that, but that's what.
Yeah. Well, and
that's
also,
kind of my brain is like, what's new? What can I keep,
Yeah. Our growth never ends. And I think, we go through some really, really hard things where we really need some acute care. But like, if you parallel it to our physical health, like, you get into a car accident or whatever, you have to go to something that's emergent, but you still need a family doctor, right? And so there's ways to kind of think through that as you move through that. Occasionally we need some brush up to be done, and occasionally we need to maybe talk something out. Maybe it's not therapy, but maybe it's like I've noticed myself being a little bit more vulnerable in the group check-ins than I have been in the past, like kind of saying, hey, this is what I was really feeling, and there were times through leading the groups where I was more like the leader and wouldn't necessarily check in, you know what I mean? But I think that's just something I've needed to do, is be a little bit more open and be a little bit, allow those guys to come alongside me too when I'm struggling with something or maybe not feeling great about something, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. So yeah, I think, I think the betrayal maybe you will get through, or the 10 worst moments that led to your addiction, but life is still life.
Yeah.
And, things still hurt and things still come at you and people still reject you or, and things like that. So it just,
it's just
keep
like
that in
you're
mind.
saying, like, so let's say for a betrayed partner, it's interesting because here's one area that I do think the recovery journeys differ a little bit. And that is for the addict. A lot of times I think group ends up being a lifelong thing because you develop, or a really, really long-term thing. Because I think you develop really deep relationships in there. And to your point, it just evolves in like, well, maybe there's a few of you that go off that are deep, deep, deep in recovery, but now you're just sort of friends that meet regularly and we talk about life. But the idea is that you found people that you continue to open up with. And so maybe it's not that different, because that's kind of what I'm going to say about the betrayed partner. But really, once sobriety is so deep that you're in recovery, it's how do you continue the vulnerability aspect of it, the emotional intimacy with other humans, and making sure that you have the relationships and you're setting aside the time to have those conversations. Yeah. Because if you go to work one week and shave off your eyebrow and have a panic attack,
hypothetically,
like you told everybody last month, you're going to want to tell that story, right? So who do you have to tell that story? Yeah. Or if, you're a little sad this week, or whatever it might be, right? So the same thing with the betrayed partner. I think sometimes where groups for the addict can always feel safe and you develop such deep relationships that it's like I don't know, I feel like a lot of people view those groups positively forever. Sometimes betrayal groups, sometimes when people get into a deep level of recovery, the being in a betrayal group in year 3 or year 2 or wherever might not feel as encouraging, because the betrayed partner doesn't want to focus on the betrayal aspect anymore. They want to focus on the healing. And so there's a time and a place, I think, for everything. You want to make sure that when you are in the early phases of betrayal and you're really in the midst of the trauma, that you are around people that can understand that.
Yeah.
And then as you're growing and changing and healing, you want to still make sure that you're around people that can understand that as well. And so there might be groups that grow with you and become your best friends and stay with you forever and ever and ever. And there might be groups that are at a different pace, because everybody's journey takes a different pace. And so sometimes that might mean that the recovery group was for a time. But again, the purpose moving forward is going to be, do I have people that know my story, that I feel safe with, that I can be vulnerable with, that I can tell, hey, I'm having a sad week, or hey, I went through this hard thing, or 99% of our relationship is amazing, but this 1% really bothered me this week, and I just wanted to talk to somebody about it, right? And do you have those people and those relationships in your life, and are you taking the time to really engage with that?
Yeah. I think ultimately, for men, for the addicts, what really you see them settle into, the ones that are successful, is they just develop male friendships, and they meet on a regular basis, and they're vulnerable. And so like it,
I would say the same thing, I think, for women.
Yeah. And so, I think you like I have a guy that I meet with on Saturday, and he and I have known each other for a long, long time. And we sit and, we don't go through any content. We just talk and we know each other's story. We know where we're at, and it's really nice because you don't carry any pretense into that sit down.
Right.
And so it's just, I think that's the growth that comes.
Right. And that's why I'm saying I think it's similar, and it could be different in different situations, but I think it's similar in terms of the specificity of the group in the beginning. And as healing occurs, the specificity goes away, but the point of emotional intimacy and vulnerability and sharing lives with each other, that part stays. And I think it's a really important point, because a lot of humanity is that's like one of the primary fears is somebody's going to find this out about me and they're going to judge me for it, right? Whatever that might be in somebody's life. It might be something totally different than addiction. It might be something totally different than betrayal, right? But a lot of people have these things of, if somebody finds XYZ out about me, they're going to think this about me.
Right.
And I think when you can live a life where you're not protecting or hiding some sort of secret from the world, I can't emphasize how much that transforms your life.
Yeah.
When you don't feel like you need to always think about, how do I have this conversation where these people don't know this part of me? It is such a freeing thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we hope for everyone listening, is that you can develop relationships with people that are safe and kind and empathetic enough to hear your story, whatever that might be, because everybody's is different, and love you through that and listen through that, and vice versa, right? We get to do that. Someone listens to our story and then we get to listen to their story, right? And that's how really deep relationships are built, where we're really sharing the hard parts.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And, one of you might be in a season where you can encourage the other, and then 6 months from now, they might be in a season where, they need to encourage you, or however that looks. And so that's kind of how that goes. And my encouragement is, if there is something in your life that feels really, really scary and overwhelming right now that you just don't want people to know about, start thinking about that. Start maybe sitting with, why does that make you uncomfortable? And what does it mean about someone else if they found that out about you and didn't want to be your friend anymore, right? And if you need support with that, maybe there's a coach or a therapist or a friend or a mentor that you can be the first safe person to open up to, that can maybe help you through that. Because every time we do something for the first time, it's scary. We were talking about, the first time you and I went to groups separately, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And then you get better at it. And then you share your story to another person. And then you share your story again. And then you notice the 10 millionth time you do it, your nervous system is so much more calm. And then the 20 millionth time you do it, it doesn't even blip.
Register.
It doesn't even register, right? So,
well, and part of that, the reason you're afraid of it is because, like all of us, the classic, we heal in community, but we've been wounded in community too. So people have hurt us. People absolutely have hurt us. So those fears that come up, it's not like they're just out in left field. They're based on something. And so it's okay to there's nothing wrong with you if you feel that way.
Right. Good point.
And so what you're...
Yeah, we all feel that way.
Yeah. What you're saying, though, when you were like mentors, coaches, friends, therapists or whatever, what you're saying is, hey, you don't want to go on social media and just blast it out, what you're doing. That's not the type of friend you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who's been there for you for a long time, or who specializes in this or something like that, because then it's more tailored to what you're going through. And so, anyway, yeah.
Are you thinking on the addict side?
Both. Yeah.
Yeah, because on the betrayed side, a lot of times, I know there's a lot of fear of people finding out, and there's a lot of shame that really isn't ours to carry, but we feel it anyway.
That's right.
When this thing happens to us, right? And so there's a lot of that, and there's like 10 bajillion reasons that it feels scary if somebody finds out that this happened, right? I think I don't think I'm doing a good job of it, but what I'm trying to communicate is that there is the possibility of a life where you are not living with a secret on your back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And just the freedom with which life can feel in living without it.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. But being able to move through feeling like you get to show up more authentically as who you are, and then people get to react to that. And to your point, some people are jerks.
Yeah.
And we're not ever going to say that they aren't. Some people are jerks. Yeah. But I do think that's a little bit of a process of moving through. If somebody, if I'm being a person of integrity and I'm being a person of vulnerability and I'm being a person of honesty and authenticity, and then somebody judges me for that, what does that say about them? Because it's way less what it says about me. It's more what it says about them.
That's right.
And then do we really, really want to bend over backwards to have those kinds of people in our lives?
And on the flip side, I'll say becoming vulnerable and open and honest in the way that we have.
Oh, that's not for everybody.
No. Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Whenever I say this, I don't mean, you have to go start a podcast.
But the amount of people who have come forward who I never thought would. I was just thinking about one of my classmates who came on the when I talked to the class about our story. He came on and he was like, "I just wanted to support Pat." Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it was just, and I hadn't talked to him in years.
Yeah.
But so it's like the people that are authentic and that are genuine, that bring healing to you, mm-hmm. when you do become a little bit more vulnerable, and they'll surprise you in some ways.
Oh yeah. I had one of my closest friends is someone that randomly, I think, asked me what I did, and I told her. Mm-hmm. And
I remember that. I was sitting on the other
you were
side
sitting
of
next to me. You're like, ah.
I was like, oh boy, this is awkward.
Yeah, and she was like, wow, that's what you do, mm-hmm. And that actually opened up the door, because she was like, wow, I was really impressed that you just kind of laid it all out there. That's what you do. And like, you help, blah, blah, blah. And because I think her follow-up question was, how did you get into that? And then of course they said, well, it's part of my story. And, we went, and so that opened the door for one of the most authentic connections that I have in my life.
Yeah.
Where I'm able to say like this, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, this is going well, or hey, how are you doing? And that's so the authenticity level and the vulnerability level allowed that. Now, if you're going to do that, not everybody's going to receive it that way, and that's information. Mm-hmm. It's just information. Okay, yep. Well. Yep. Maybe then they don't get more vulnerability from me after that. Yeah. But if we don't venture out to be vulnerable, we miss out on some of the best connections we can have, is my point with that. Yeah. So we got a little off topic here, but good stuff, I think.
Yeah, it is good.
All right. So the point is, we hope that we maybe threw in some different ideas for how you can make this affordable for you, so that you can still access the care and the support that you need. Because there's a lot, from completely free and just sole focused on it to gathering a whole team around you and anything in between, mm-hmm. From absolutely free to sky high budgets, to be honest with you. You could go, really, 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 really expensive if you wanted
inpatient, all kinds of things.
Yeah, really expensive options out there. But you don't have to. You absolutely do not need to spend that much money. I think it's much, much, much more about where your heart is, and how much you want it, and what are you going to focus on? You go gather your resources, you gather the information, you learn about your brain, you learn about patterning, you learn about emotions, you learn about wounding, you learn, and you apply it to your life. And then you do the self-reflection, and you have the deep conversations, and you connect with other people, and I think that'll take you really, really far, if not all the way.
Yep.
All right, Patrick, you want to see if you can remember
I can't.
Try it.
Every day is a good day.
It's a new opportunity.
Every day is a new opportunity to have a good day.
You're fired. All right, everyone. All together with me now. Every day is a new opportunity to choose health and freedom. Make that choice today, and we will see you next week. Woohoo! If you're listening to this, it means you've made it through an entire episode. Part of recovery is spending time engaging in healing and self-growth activities. We are thankful that you chose our podcast to be one of those activities today. Make sure you reward yourself for that accomplishment. If you've enjoyed this episode or this podcast, we would love to hear from you. Please take just a few moments to leave a rating and review, letting us know your experience with Recover You. We not only love hearing how these episodes are helpful, but ratings and reviews help others just like you who are searching for recovery information and support find the podcast too. We can't wait to hear from you. See you next week.